And proud to have one of our own here tonight, Senator Mike Green. Many of us in this room supported Mike, worked for him, put up signs, and we told him we're going to hold his feet to the fire. You're going to hear from us. If you do something we don't like, you're going to hear from us. Hopefully, if you do something we do like, you're going to hear from us. And we wanted, please join me in welcoming Senator Mike Green.
But hope to give you some good information on what you can use. I want to. Mike. Oh, I'm sorry. What's this for? Right up. First of all, I think probably most of you know Ryan Mitchell. He was my campaign manager in the state of Ryan. He's my jack of all trades. He's my first he does my scheduling. And then he does all of my press releases, and he does all my press appointments when I have scheduled, when we have to do some of those things too. And he's really a real asset to me. He's been great.
Yay, Ryan!
So I'm honored to have a Vassarite on my staff. He's really been good. And let me talk to you just a little bit about Lansing, first of all. You know what? It's a whole lot easier to campaign than it is to legislate. It really is. And so when you hear people on campaign, as you heard me, I mean, I believe this, and I believe that, and here's what I believe. And when you get there, it's not any of these. It's always gray on each side. It's not black and white. And so, even though they're not, there's still some core principles that we have to stand by. And I promise you I will stand on those core principles, but it's not always the easiest decision to make sometimes. I've already had some Tea Party people call me. What they call you? The ones that call me bad things gets to there and I never hear them. But I told my wife during the campaign that, you know what, it's much more critical now because when I was in the House 10 years ago, I rarely ever got a call on any issue. Rarely ever. Not that I was ashamed of any of them that I couldn't answer. But now, there are literally, I don't know how many. Everybody has access to my vote the day I make it. Good. Good. That's good. That's not bad. Absolutely. But I have to be up on what I'm doing. I have to be clear-minded on every vote that I make because sometimes the votes that I make sense to me, but they don't to you. And in order for me to explain some things that I vote for, I can't talk to everybody. And you only see one side of it. You just see the little blurb that goes across there. And so please, if you ever see a vote that I made, don't be afraid to call. Don't be afraid to call me and say, what in the world are you voting for? Why are you doing that? And one other thing I want to let you know too, and it may come in the slides, and if it does, I may be getting way ahead of myself. I represent a very different district than I did 10 years ago. You know what? Here in Tuscola County was easy. Everybody believed the same values, everything, both counties. Rural, Aggie. Now they threw Bay County in it. And it did put a whole different perspective on the job that I have to do. Not values or anything like that. I just got more work. It's a town. It's a city. The mayor got up one day and introduced me in Bay City, and he said, Senator, do you have more than one light in your town? Look at the lights in Bay City. Look how many I got in Mayville. How many we got, Claire? One light in Mayville. So, I mean, it is different, but the people there are the same. They're still good people, and with good values, they want to see good things happen. So, I better shut up because I'm probably talking about some things that's in my slide. I want to commend Ryan, too, because he put this whole slide process together, and him and John Lizette. John Lizette is my chief of staff. John's been there for at least 30 years. He's been chief of staff to at least 4 other state senators. He is the one with all the history. He knows what happened 20 years ago and why we passed that bill and they passed that bill. And he knows everything leading up to it, so he's just a huge resource for me. And then Emily Carney is my legislative director, who's been there 20 years with the same background that they have. People come and go in Lansing all the time. I think John was the only chief of staff left over from the previous Senate. And there was 22 of those. John was the only one left over. But people come up to me and say, how'd you get John Vassar? He knows more than any legislator around here. So I got some good advisors. Maybe sometimes too many details. I'm kind of a big picture guy. I can look at the big picture, and that's what I want to get done. Sometimes I'm not so good on the details. But that's important, and that's where they help me a lot. Okay, how are we doing, Ryan? Ready?
Sir.
All right, first of all, my website. Please go to my website for everything that you need. For the last 2 months they've been working on, there's not a website like that on the state senator's office in Lansing. Everything you see there. All the indexes, the forms for your taxes, the hunt fishing information, governor's proposed budget, photos, publications. Any publications that the state makes are on my website. You can print it off. If you want to find a bill, it doesn't have the votes, but it's got the bill if you know the number and you can research it. If you want a congratulatory letter to your mother who had a 100th anniversary, there's a place there to let us know about that. There's just all kinds of links, and there's videos about me. Some of my speeches are on there. Some you may agree with, some you may disagree with, but they're there, and don't be afraid to use that. I want people to think about, gee, I gotta know something about state government, and I want Mike Green to pop in their mind. And that's why we're doing this, so that you'll be able to have a resource so that you can understand what's going on there. If there's something there you don't know anything about, well, then give us a call, and maybe we can try and put it in there. Then I also have a slide here. Christopher Gould in my district was killed in Iraq recently. And you know what, folks? What'd you say? Oh, I'm sorry. If I say something wrong, you correct me, please. I didn't make it to the funeral, but I went and talked to the parents. And that's really a guy that really gave his life for us. And when it's somebody you know, somebody that you represent, it makes it a whole lot different, doesn't it? And sometimes we get so callous to the folks that are over there dying, and we shouldn't. But I was able to go and talk with his parents and give them a tribute and give my condolences. And we don't ever want to forget that people are dying over there for us, for nobody else but them. One thing I want you to know that I'm only one of 38 senators. And I'm only one vote. And there's 110 House members too, and 1 governor. And so I wanted to show you that the Senate floor where we sit, there are 28 Republicans and 12 Democrats. And there's my seat. So you got an idea of where I'm sitting?
Almost in the front row.
Daily set on the pier.
Daley is in the House of Representatives.
Yeah, where's he set?
He doesn't sit there. He's in a different...
I mean, just more like when you're all together.
Well, we're not ever together.
Oh, you're not?
Nope. He's in the House, a separate body, and I'm in the Senate.
Okay.
Nice to see you, Larry. It's been a while. How you doing?
I got your what? You sent me?
Good deal.
Yeah.
I tried to call you yesterday, too, when you weren't home. I want to show you a picture of our Senate districts. And they're big districts. This is what I'm supposed to tell you. I've got 5 counties. I wish I only had 2 counties again. I've got 5 counties, and it's a big stretch. And you say, well, you don't work hard enough. You might say that. But frankly, folks, my Mondays and Fridays and Saturdays that I'm not in Lansing is full. And sometimes I have to say, Ryan, back off a little bit, will you? I can't continue this pace. But it's busy. I enjoy it. I love to talk. I love to be with people. And so it's, you might say it's a calling for me. I don't know if you can say that for sure, but it is certainly something that I enjoy doing, and it's fun for me. There's 250,000 people in my district, and I have to make all of them happy, because that's the goal of every senator, is to make all your constituents happy and be in an ability to help them when they need me. So let's go down to Tuscola County. Now you've heard the governor talk about dashboards and where are we at and how do we measure ourselves? Are we responsible? How do we adjust our programs to where we're meeting the needs of the people, we're spending the money where they want us to spend it to? And so he has a dashboard for every department in Lansing, and we're able to look at it, and you have to start somewhere. I went to visit Tuscola County Commissioners a couple weeks ago, and some of them, they had one too. So they got a dashboard all prepared, and it's interesting what some of the things are there. On the next screen, you're going to see some of the dashboards that they have. Over here, you're going to see the personal income. I think that's what it is, isn't it? $26,000 per person is our average. Is it over here? Over here. Well, that's the total income of everybody in Tuscola County, and there's the average of what everybody is, $26,000. So I have to take that $26,000 figure and calculate, do they need to pay more taxes? It's tough. It's tough to raise taxes. Frankly, in all the needs that we have, I've heard people come tonight, and I might as well get it out now. I'm not supporting the increased tax on the pension. So if you're holding that back, you know what?
Hey, Mike.
Oh, I'm sorry. Why am I not? There's arguments on both sides, and here's why I'm not. Everyone, you saw my commercial all summer that said we've got to live within our means and cut taxes and try to balance the budget without raising taxes. The argument is some of the pensions, some people are working, some are 62 working, paying taxes, some are 62 drawing pensions and not paying taxes. Is that fair? Well, Cal says, yeah, it is. But the fact is they're the same age and one's earning their money and the other one has already earned their money. And so I can argue both sides of it all day. Which is right, which is wrong. I'm not supporting taxes. And that's what I'm going to do. I have to take a stand somewhere. And as I look at the people in Tuscola County, do we have any unemployment records in Tuscola? Yeah, we do, right there. Unemployment rates, 16%.
Whoa, 16%?
Unemployment rates.
Oh,
As you can see, that was in 2009.
Is it? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's probably 18% now, isn't it?
I doubt it's true.
Times are tough for everybody. Another Tuscola County demographic, population change. Let me ask you this. Right now, our population is about 56,000. Anybody have any idea, this is, oh no, by the way, what our population was in 1890? It's 56,000 now. What do you think it was in 1890?
56,000.
No, it wasn't that much. It was 35,000. You know, we've only grown 20,000 in 120 years. Kind of hard to imagine, isn't it? But we're just a good old rural county and living within our means, right? And that's what I think is important for us. The next one is the employers in Tuscola County. These are the 10 major employers in Tuscola County, with the county being the #1 employer. And going down to the regional center, Hills and Dales Hospital, Wolverine Human Services right here in Vassar. These are all where everybody earns their money. And it's not until you get to, unless you want to consider Hills and Dales Hospital, but Walmart till you find private industry employer. It's all government. Then you go on down a little farther and there's Medivation, community schools, Vassar schools, Walboro. So we just have, get that other one, right? Those are the ones that are government-run principal employers in Michigan, in Tuscola County. So as your state senator, I represent you in Lansing. And every day I remember my roots, and I remember those things that I have to take into consideration when I vote on anything. Well, let's go to the state budget, and I'm not sure how important the state budget is to most of you folks. I know when I was not in Lansing, that was not foremost on my mind of where all the state taxes went to and what happened to them and how they get spread around. And I'm not sure how important it is to you, but I just wanted to talk about a few things tonight about the state budget. First of it is, we have a $47,050,517,800 total budget for the state of Michigan. And this is how it's spread up. Where's it come from? Well, first of all, believe it or not, the federal government gives us most of it. And doesn't that make you feel good? Not only is the federal government, not only is the federal government running the federal government crazy, they're running our state crazy too. So, not really. It's come. There's been some Obama money that's come and gone, but this is federal funds that some of it goes to pay schools, some of it goes to, for example, I have the DEQ budget, about $420 or $30 million budget for the DEQ. $400 million is all federal funds, and they dictate what happens at the DEQ. And so we have about 20 or 30 million that we can actually, if we have to cut general fund dollars, that's where we have to cut. So there's where the money comes from. There's other state restricted funds of about 17 billion. Restricted funds would be something like the Natural Resources Trust Fund that you voted for. All our oil and gas revenues go into that trust fund, and none of the base is ever spent, but just the interest is spent, and they buy land with it, they buy places to make parks. They spend the money on what they think is best for our national environment. And then we also have another trust fund that all of our licenses go into, hunting licenses, and that's all restricted, and most of that money goes to the DNR to spend on hunting issues. So there's $17 billion worth of funds like that come into the. That isn't mine, is it? No, I better put mine on.
I just put mine on vibrate.
Oh, all right. So the money that we have, only $8,301,787,000 is the only money going to the state budget that's collected from state taxes that's available to move around. So where does the federal funds primarily go? There's a quick one right there. Community mental health, $9 billion. Human services, which is welfare, $5.9 billion. Education, $2 billion, and it goes on down the list there. And the state restricted funds that I just talked about, school aid, gas tax, natural resources trust fund, all the revenue sharing is all in a constitutional fund. There's some statutory funds where some more revenue sharing is, part of the income tax, real estate transfer fees, and they must be spent directed by constitution or law. So now there's another, where does the state restricted funds go? And you can see that, K-12, transportation, community health, revenue sharing, that's where some of that goes. And the state general fund comes from different sources, such as the state income tax, business tax, cigarette tax, and can be spent on anything. And this is where the general fund spends most of their money. Health is one of the biggest, corrections is another one of the biggest, higher ed, and it goes on down farther. This is a 40-year history of state spending versus individual income. Do you get what that says? The top one is state spending. Oops.
Snowed out.
Don't have it. Computer glitch. All right, we got $45 billion that we're spending in the state, and the individual income is around $30 billion. So how does the state save money? There we go. So by federal law, we must spend all the federal money on what it comes in for. And if we don't spend the federal money on what it comes in for, then they take it back, and then they make us do it without their money. So we can disagree with them on where it needs to go, and say, I'm not taking any money from you, feds, but they have a law that says if you don't take our money, you still have to do what we tell you. just love the federal government. So how does the state save money? So what happens, we're gonna go down there, and I heard someone tell me before, if I can see that budget, I just redline everything. Well, it's not that easy. Restricted funds must be spent for their restricted purposes. If the Department of Transportation cuts their costs, the budget still must be spent on transportation issues. If the state banned MDOT salaries over $25,000, the saved money would still have to be spent on roads and whatever. And the last slide that I've got is the way I look at everything. I have three budgets. I'm the Senate chairman of the Senate Appropriation and Agriculture, DNR, and DEQ budgets. And as I look at how we spend money, if it's general fund money, I can't look at anything else. I have to ask four things. Number one, where does the money go? You know what? Sometimes it's hard to find. Where does it go? How's it being spent effectively? What's the priorities? Is it being spent efficiently? And how much money really is enough? I have to ask not only the state, the federal, the schools, the locals, how much is enough? Any of them. There's never enough. There's never enough money for government agencies to spend. And so whatever it is that they get, they'll spend it all. But in some cases, it's not a choice that we have a choice. You can't spend any. It's restricted, and they spend. If they don't spend it, it stays in the fund for some future school aid fund. If we don't give all the school aid money out, it stays in the fund. It can only be used for school aid. So there's my presentation. I wanted to remind you again about my website, State Senator MikeGreen.com. Please go there, and if there's something there that you need, you can't find it, you can always call our office, 989-517-373-1777. It's easy to remember. I'm ready for questions.